My name is Randy Reed. I'm the publisher and editor of the Edison Report, a sponsor of the National Lighting Bureau's annual Lighting Forum. We're here at the studios of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, where I'm serving as a moderator of 5 panel discussions. This panel is titled Illuminating the Future Part 2, and this panel will focus on the Internet of Things and connected lighting. The panel includes Carol Jones of Enlighted, Mark Lean with the Illuminating Engineering Society, and Jim Yorgi of Lutron. Welcome.
Thanks.
And Jim, if you will, explain to our audience the definition of IoT and how it's related to lighting.
Sure. I'll start by, we went to Wikipedia, the absolute authority on all things, and looked at their definition. And they say the inner working of physical devices, vehicles, buildings, and other items embedded with electronics, software, sensors, actuators, and network connectivity that enable these objects to collect and exchange data. And that's sort of their form of definition for IoT.
And I hate to contradict the gospel of Wikipedia.
You expect me to.
Actually, I kind of enjoy it. The first word is internet working in their definition. Now, have any of you ever heard of internet working before? So do we really have a defined definition within the context of their definition? And I think that really lays the groundwork for where we are in the lighting industry right now. We don't even have definitions for many of the terms that we need to move forward with standardization for IoT. So an example of that is first quarter of 2017, the ANSI C137 Lighting Systems Committee is putting out a nomenclature document that would be an American national standard for terms that you might think we have defined already: interoperability, physical interchangeability, and many others that we really don't even have a clear definition of yet. And while Wikipedia gives us a central axiom, it's not an agreed to definition. If you look at Cisco or Google's definitions, they differ. So we're very much at the initial stages of this IoT revolution.
So I see a lot of IoT in residential, and I have Alexa with my Amazon Echo, but our audience is more concerned, I think, with commercial, industrial, that sort of thing. Carol, where do you see this being used?
I think going beyond the definitions into the broader question of IoT and lighting is something that also needs to be said in terms of definition. Essentially what it means is that lighting is not just about lighting anymore. Lighting is about much more than lighting, and we've got communication between many devices ever expanding and hard to predict, and 2 major disciplines coming together. And how is that going to happen? How will the software and IT and sensor industry come together with the lighting, buildings, and construction industry in order to create something that works for the end customer? And so in my mind, that it means that you've got different domains. And what I'd like to see is have the folks that are experts at cybersecurity and networking and the technical things provide the majority of input on the things they're best at, and that the lighting community and the lighting domain needs to sort of carpe diem in terms of how we want to see IoT manifest better lighting solutions for us, which is absolutely possible if we own our own voice in relationship to how these systems get built and deployed. And a lot of it comes to context and specifications and applications and experience flow, user interface, things like that. Because so many things are possible that haven't been possible before. So it's a double-edged sword.
Mark?
I hope you're right that the others pick up the ball on the cybersecurity and the other issues, and we could focus on lighting, because somebody is going to need to focus on lighting. Mm-hmm. What's been very conspicuous to me at the conferences that I've been attending on Internet of Things and on connected lighting is that the people coming from the telecoms and the internet companies and the electronics companies, they devalue lighting. I often hear it said, lighting is easy. Just wait till you have to deal with my stuff.
Right.
Right? And that to me says not just an ignorance of our industry, it really says that they're looking at lighting as a consumer mind. That consumers might feel that lighting, most of what they need is in the aisle at a big box store. But we know from the conferences that we have and the technical committees that we have and the standards that are written in this industry that it's much more complex. Lighting quality could suffer dramatically if we aren't in charge of our destiny.
And would you say our industry is a leader in IoT or a follower in IoT?
At this point, I would say that the IoT conferences clearly indicate that they value lighting and they know it plays a role, and the role that's clear so far is that it's the best way to get a distributed electrical connection throughout a building or a municipality for the outdoor lighting.
Okay.
But beyond that, they aren't very clear on how lighting plays into the rest of their building management systems. So I don't see clear leadership yet.
Which lighting products would you guys say have the most, would be the most beneficial, or would benefit the most from IoT?
You know, obviously, because we're talking about an interconnected system, all the lighting products will be touched for the most part. But I see this as a tremendous boon for, well, for luminaires, starting with, because what we're talking about here for the most part is granular sensing. So you're going to have sensors in every luminaire. That's really the prevailing trend. And that means many, many new luminaires, new retrofit kits, and along with that come all the controls to make it functional. But we can see this as a tremendous boon, as a great opportunity to come out from commoditization, if you will, if it's handled properly.
Yeah, Carol,
Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, and you're saying about all the sensors now that are going into fixtures, whether it's temperature, heating, and sometimes cameras and all that, that immediately points to the fact that there has to be integration with the other building services. Because now it's not just worrying about the lighting and getting it right and daylight control and those things, but now we have to get that information that we're gathering from that luminaire to the HVAC guys, to the security people. So there's a lot of integration that has to happen, whether it's over the internet or intranet in buildings.
So
Please.
I agree with both of these visions, but I think preceding their happening is the IoT in terms of exterior. What we've seen so far in smart cities is the connections have been using lighting poles as the primary source for electricity, and adding all of the sensors that we're talking about that apply to outside and the data collection that we apply to exterior, including gunshot sensors and temperature sensors and motion sensors and video cameras, until lighting becomes, oh yeah, it lights up too.
And did I see recently that they're going to use the light poles to land drones?
Amazon has a, yeah,
Wait,
actually has a
we
patent.
don't know this. What?
Amazon is designing light poles that they take their drones that deliver our packages,
Right.
and they'll park on the light fixtures.
Because the drones have a short battery life.
Right,
They
for
need to have a
recharge.
safe place to land to recharge, so the recharging is on the top of the light fixtures where people can't access it, and where there are a number of light fixtures in any municipality where they deliver product.
So what's happening is we're seeing a radical shift in the value propositions associated. It's tremendous creative thinking. I mean, it's, again, I keep coming to the opportunity that we want to figure out, well, what do we get out of this as a lighting industry, and also what do we need to protect, and anticipate.
So
but
cities used to generate a little bit of income from banners being attached to their poles, and now they're going to be drone recharging stations.
One small aspect of what they do will be a drone
That is
recharging
the
fascinating.
station.
list, yeah. And interior, exterior, I agree with you. These are two very different markets
Yeah.
in many respects. But in both cases, it's lighting is becoming part of something much larger.
With IoT, Carol, what benefit is it having IoT on network systems with other equipment? And do you think that lighting will control the system, or there will be the building management systems that will control everything?
So one answer is it depends on who you talk to. I think if you had talked to the HVAC industry 5 years ago, they perhaps would have seen this as something they would grow into because they got to intelligent buildings before lighting did, truthfully. However, now that we see granular sensing and luminaires, I believe it's going to be driven by the lighting system
Okay.
because of the fact that the sensors will be there in the lighting system, and from that sensor you can then connect to the other building systems. And sometimes it's hardware, sometimes it's software.
Okay.
Yeah,
Jim?
I think, and one of the important aspects of that is how do I communicate that information to the luminaire and back into the system? And so right now we have multiple ways of doing that. You know, some are wired solutions and some are wireless solutions, and you know, will both prevail, or is there going to be one ultimate solution? I think we have to see where that's going in the future as well.
And there needs to be concern for that communication of the data that you're discussing. Who owns it, and what's it being used for? And that's one of my bigger concerns at this point. Is there's a lot of very positive benefits that could come from the Internet of Things for people, but anything strong enough to help you is strong enough to hurt you. And so the potential is there. And I'll give you an example. I was in a meeting not long ago where time-of-flight sensors were being put into fixtures. Now this time-of-flight sensor, what it did was sense movement around the space, and it could control the light fixtures based on where people were positioned in the space.
I used to call that a motion detector.
No, this is more than a motion detector. If someone moved to the end of a table, for example, this time-of-flight sensor in the fixture would indicate that someone was in position to give a presentation. All the lights would dim you know, to a certain level around the table. They'd dim completely around the screen. But if somebody fell to the floor, it would sense the height difference, and somebody fell to the floor and the lights would blink red to warn you that somebody had fallen and that they needed help, right? So that's a time-of-flight sensor. The discussion was, should it have a high enough resolution so that we could see who these people are at any given time and record that data, or should it be, the resolution be low enough that it was just bodies that were moving around the space?
Privacy concerns.
Privacy concerns.
So there are many decisions that need to be made. So consider a retail application. If you're in a retail application and you've got a connected lighting system that can give you wayfinding to a particular sale or a product that you're interested in, you would have the option to opt in as a customer, as a consumer.
Right.
And if you do that, if I've got a rewards program that I'm a part of and I've been surfing on a particular site, and the retail company that I just walked in the door and they know my phone already because I've got the app, they say, hey, you know, if you buy it today, you get 20% off of this thing you've been thinking about for 3 months, you know. That's an opt-in type of scenario. In the commercial situations where you've got an employer, it's going to depend on multiple things. It'll be a conversation between employees, employers, and there might be ways to turn it on and off yourself in terms of your device. Not every business is the same. You know, in some cases it makes absolute sense and it's totally appropriate. In other cases it's invasive.
Sure.
Yeah, the concept, again, can really help you. In a grocery store, it spits out coupons, it knows who you are, you opt in, that's great. But if that data was sold to an employer and they found out you were buying alcohol and cigarettes on a regular basis,
Absolutely.
then you may not be their ideal employer,
Right.
depending on the type.
Do you think our industry is doing everything they should be doing on cybersecurity for IoT?
Yes and no.
Okay, please.
I don't think the lighting industry is really capable of doing what's needed in cybersecurity. We really need to leave that to the experts. That's part of what I started with. This is a multidisciplinary conversation. So I don't want to see, I want to see the right questions come forward. So there's a big difference between saying, you know, this is what we require, this is what we need. This is the set of performance specifications, if you will. But I would not expect a lighting industry to be able to answer the exact questions of how it needs to be done. So again, there's got to be that healthy dialogue saying this is what we require.
Okay, Jim?
Yeah, it's very important, the whole cybersecurity issue, and as you know, hardware developer and manufacturer, we have to really look at it quite hard, and we have a security expert who, when he gives us presentations, his first point is everything is hackable, and you have to start from that premise. And we have to really start at the embedded level of our products to build in that security, those security hooks and protections, and of course take it up to the system level. And then it's, to your point, we have to work with the IT professionals who have to secure the building network. But we're working in essence sort of under that network. But still, we need those security hooks in our products.
Yeah, devices are key to this. Obviously, you've got cybersecurity at a device level, a network level, and a data level, right, that you have to deal with. But what I'm seeing with the devices is that, and you mentioned that everything's hackable. Everything's been hacked. Zigbee's been hacked, Z-Wave's been hacked, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all of the protocols that are common to smart lighting have already been hacked. And the manufacturers have an option with some of these newer protocols to put in multiple levels of security, but it creates a poor user experience. So with Zigbee, where you can put in multiple passwords, who wants to put in 2 passwords to turn their lights on? So at that point, perhaps we're looking at someone else to handle this. Perhaps biometrics will take care of it, but we've got a direct conflict with creating a good user experience and a safe experience with the devices.
Maybe.
Maybe?
Maybe. I mean, that's kind of my point. Is that when you're looking at something that you're coming to understand, it's easy to draw linear conclusions. It may very well be possible, depending on how you break up the system architecture, how you set up your platform, how you set up your APIs, that you're able to mitigate risk in ways that we can't anticipate right now.
Oh,
So
that's
it's, you
very
know,
true. I'm
so
at the
it's-
state of where we are now.
I think your basic
is,
principle is correct,
Yeah.
right? But I've also seen some of these folks solve problems that just blew me away. So, you know, again, coming back to what is it that we require, right? And then working together to solve the problem. And in the lighting industry, we want to make sure, for instance, that the folks that are creating the devices, the manufacturers, and the software and the user experience need to understand what are the needs of the space. Codes and standards, dimming behaviors, aesthetics. To what degree do we need to have flexibility for a designer or an engineer to make a finite adjustment in a space? To what degree do we need to have default simplicity options for the electrical contractors to get it set up and configured so that you can exit without a significant expenditure of extra labor, right? So, so again, those requirements need to be put out loud and clear, or people will treat lighting like a consumer product, and it's not in the commercial and industrial applications.
Yeah, and there's a problem also in that it's, as we connect it to more devices, you know, if we hit that 50 billion by 2020 that Cisco and Google are talking about, as we connect more of these devices, the protocol that we're using in the lighting also allows access to the locks, to the refrigerator, to the smart toaster, for the possibility for a lot of negative interactions. And I appreciate the optimism that you expressed that these problems could be resolved in the future, because I think they could, but they aren't yet.
Oh no, I agree with that. I agree with that. So I don't disagree with what you're saying about the critical nature of cybersecurity.
Yeah.
I just don't want to spin wheels having lighting professionals overanalyze that when in fact you really need to have owners, for instance. You know, it's so the lighting industry is largely at risk related to the things that we need out of this system revolution, if you will. Whereas the people that are most at risk when it comes to cybersecurity are owners and tenants and individuals.
Yeah.
So let's get them in the conversation as well. They're already dealing with this on multiple fronts. They're dealing with this on their IT networks. They're dealing with this with their financial transactions. So let's get them engaged in the conversation. That then probably makes it more of a three-way conversation if you've got, well, it's a multifaceted. You've got the lighting, buildings, owners, occupants, et cetera.
And they need to have a better understanding of what we do.
Yeah, and that's to your point. It is a coordination effort. You have to have, to your point, the building owners, the specification community needs to be on board and understand how deep they need to go into the security aspects of it. The contractors, they have enough to be dealing with in terms of installing the electrical systems and building the building. Do they really need to be worried about cybersecurity issues? That should be really certainly on the manufacturers, but also on a different level of in this case the IT professionals to deal with that. And so it's that coordination, and certainly with the construction industry, it's the coordination of if systems are talking to each other, the electrical contractors and installers need to be working with the HVAC installers and the security system installers, so that as the building is assembled, things work together correctly.
Okay. Closing comment?
A couple thoughts occurred to me with your last point. One is that it's extremely important for the installers that we make this reasonable, right? I think it's an inevitable truth that the world is expanding from electrical to include IT services, and so I think it would be wise for electrical contractors to consider expanding what they offer, but we also need to be, thoughtful about, to what degree can we expect that delta to happen over time. And the other thought, as a closing comment, is that I expect to see an increase in services in our industry because of the fact that we have more system integration that's going to be needed. So I expect to see more value-added suppliers and services organizations helping to pull this whole thing together, similar to what the HVAC industry has had for some time.
Mark?
Yeah, I would agree with the emphasis on services totally. And I'd just like to point out that you use the term revolution, Carol. So it is a revolution, but it promises to be even a larger revolution for the lighting industry than solid state, which was the biggest revolution any of us living can recall in terms of lighting. And that's at a time when arguably light and health and how light impacts our health is another ongoing revolution. So if we have concurrent revolutions in our industry at one time, buckle up.
Yeah.
And I would certainly agree, and it's an exciting time for us because things are moving so quickly. That makes it challenging, but also very interesting. And revolution is a good term, but I think it's an evolution as well. In other words, we are evolving into things that we had not expected 5 years ago, even. So
Sure.
now we're doing things and needing to do things that provide hopefully a better building, a better solution for the people in the buildings, that they're healthier and more productive, and that's really the goal, right? But doing it with some neat new technology.
Okay. Well, guys, buckle up.
Buckle up.
Thank you. This was great.